Welcome to Thank You Half Hour. I'm your host, Tom Christopher Warren, and today I am over the moon to have as my very special guest, Vashty Mompoint.
Hi.
We know Vashty from Broadway, from TV, from film. She's an actor, a writer, a director, a choreographer, a songwriter. Talk about a multi-hyphenate. And we're lucky enough to have her here in Columbus for a short period of time because she's directing an incredible production of The Color Purple at Short North Stage, which is still in rehearsal and will be opening in about a week and a half. And so we're lucky enough to have her here in town, and I'm lucky enough to have her here on the podcast. Vashty, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. So excited.
I know, and you don't know this, listeners, but it is the butt crack of dawn. It's 10 o'clock, and the fact that we're here and smiling and caffeinated is, a joy, a true joy. Vashty. Okay, so you are, I tend to sort of start with what inspired you to get into the theater, both as something you love to do and also what made you realize that it was a vocation, that it was something you can earn a living at. And talk about earning a living. 8 Broadway shows. 8, what camera am I even, I'm going to look at all 3 cameras to identify the fact that 8 Broadway shows on a resume. I had to write them down because who can remember all of this? What prompted you from the South? Yeah, Alabama?
Yeah.
Yeah. How long were you there? Your whole young adult life?
Well, it's like, so my family's from Haiti. And I was, my sister was the first American born. I was like right after.
Okay.
In New York City. Then we
Where
lived,
in New York City?
Staten Island.
Really?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I don't remember any of it because we moved when I was like 3.
Got it.
So then we moved to, and we spent a lot of summers in Haiti. So like I had kind of like so then we moved to Charlotte, North Carolina in a Caribbean community. So I grew up with like other Jamaicans, Haitians, just anyone basically from the Caribbean. We had like this like kind of club kind of community.
Amazing.
And so then we went from there, I moved to Alabama when I was like 11. And that was like culture shock. I was like, what?
And what was your gateway into theater? Was it church theater? Was it community theater school? What?
It wasn't even, I was, my uncle gave me a compilation album that because my uncle liked theater.
Okay.
Like he's the most, of my family, he's the most like in tune with like, I guess what American entertainment is.
Okay.
And so he'd been in New York as well. And so he gave me a compilation CD with like Annie on it, Phantom of the Opera, just like all these, and like Starlight Express. And I was like, this is awesome.
Even before seeing it, it was an oral experience first. Really?
And then we saw Annie, and I was like, that's really awesome. And I was, at the time, I was doing track, and I was running hurdles.
Oh, wow.
And so my coach, like, encouraged ballet class to help with height on hurdles and to get more into dance. And so I was in dance, and then I was like, I could either like be tired and sweaty and wear those smelly clothes and do track, or I was kidding.
Or I could be fabulous.
Or I could be fabulous and sweaty in ballet shoes. And I did. And then I went to dance class instead.
Amazing. Okay, so dance was really your entry into
Yes, absolutely. Theater. 100%. Right.
And then you go to New York AMDA or LA AMDA?
I went to New York AMDA.
So did I.
Oh yes, I always forget that.
So do I, because it was 300 years ago.
300. Well, because I would do dance competitions, and at conventions we would take from teachers all over. And there was a guy who passed away a few years ago. His name was Chet Walker.
Sure.
I don't know if you heard Chet Walker.
Yeah.
And he was like one of Bob Fosse's like people.
Yeah.
And he taught a class, and I loved it. And I was like, this is cool. That was my first theater dance class, and I loved it.
Amazing.
And that's when I understood that there was a difference between dance and theater dance in the way that it's done.
So is AMDA what brought you to New York?
Actually, AMDA was the way I got to New York, but I actually wanted to be an MTV VJ.
No. I live for that.
And I actually got to do a few episodes on MTV as a VJ. And I worked for MTV and doing a few things. And then I focused more on the musical theater after graduation. But yeah.
You were doing the VJing while you were at school?
Oh, no, I did that after.
Right after. And then you just decided to go to Broadway. What was the first Broadway show?
My first Broadway show was, it won several Tonys. It was called Good Vibrations.
Yep.
It didn't win any Tonys. But wasn't even considered for a nomination. But it was a great experience. I was a swing.
Explain to my tens of listeners what a swing is.
The funny thing about that is that I didn't know what a swing was when I said yes. And I remember my agent time, she's like, and you're going to be swing. You know what that is? I was like, oh, yeah, I know what that is. Of course I know. And there wasn't really
idea.
Google like that. What it was like, Ask Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves.
Do you remember Ask Jeeves?
I do. How dare you? Age me like that.
I didn't use that, but I wanted to say Ask Jeeves. So, and it wasn't until I got to rehearsal that I didn't, and I don't think many people know that. Yeah, that first day, I didn't know that I wouldn't be on stage and that I would be swinging.
The first day of rehearsal, you still hadn't quite learned what a swing was. Amazing.
No, I was like, I'm going to be in a show.
How many girls did you cover?
All of them. There were 5 of them. It wasn't a dance show. It was very hard because we sang Beach Boy music, and all of it was in 5-part, very, 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 very Brian Wilson type harmony.
Yep.
So
and you vocally swung.
Yes, it was a vocal and it was hard, but it was also really great training for my brain on doing harmony stuff because at the time I sang, but I was still shy about singing solo. But that
holding down a harmony line.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so you did Good Vibrations. What was the next one?
After that, I did a show called Hot Feet.
Yeah.
It was based on the story of the Red Shoes.
Right.
But with Earth, Wind, and Fire music.
That's right.
So we got to work with Earth, Wind, and Fire, which was awesome.
That's incredible.
The show was wild, but the choreographer / director was Maurice Hines, who passed away a few weeks ago.
Just passed away.
And he was like a legend. So getting to work on being able to do like an all-black dance show on Broadway was pretty cool. Because that's what I wanted. I would watch Fame and there's Fame. What was the other one? And Chorus Line. Sure. And I was like, that looks so cool. Just a bunch of like dancers like sweating on stage and doing all this stuff. And so I got to fulfill that fantasy.
Did you see After Midnight when it was in
New
York? I did too. You know, Paper Mill was doing it.
Oh, really?
I think it's their next show. I think they're about to start. I think I may need to have to.
I
need to go out and see it. I loved that show.
Me too.
That was remarkable. Yeah. Okay, so Good Vibrations, Hot Feet, Mary Poppins, Ghost, Soul Doctor, Rocky. I didn't know this is I did a little Wikipedia deep dive earlier. I did not know about Rocky. The 20 minutes of the fight in that.
Best part of the show was the last 20 minutes.
It was, but also some of the most thrilling 20 minutes I've ever seen in a Broadway theater. It was just bananas.
It was doing it was bananas. They explained to us what would happen, and then I remember being in tech rehearsal, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Just pulling because there was a boxing ring that they would move anyone that was in the first 3 rows. Then they would go on stage, and the stage became a boxing ring, and then something
flew.
Yeah, then there was a jumbotron that came in. It was wild, and every night we looked forward to that part. It was so cool just hearing the audience like go crazy, and everyone was like, and that was the first show at the theater. They said that was the first show where the line to the men's bathroom was longer than the women's because more men came to see Rocky.
Well, I mean, I know nothing about boxing. I don't have any sort of into it, right? But theatrically, I can't imagine. You're reading a script and you're like, okay, and then a boxing ring flies in.
Yeah.
In the middle of the audience, we move rows of ticket holders from their seats to the stage in the middle of the show, and then a boxing match, a 20-minute boxing match happens. You're like, okay, that's not
And
possible.
they're just on stage. They were like on stage with us, and like I was like, there were 3 of us that were like the featured girls in the show, and we were like Apollo's girls, so we were like ring lady. We were the ring girls, and just like all this stuff. And I had the best entrance that I think I'll ever have in my life for that. That was like. When that show closed, I was like, oh, that was a good entrance.
My God. And the blood everywhere.
Yeah.
It was pretty incredible. Then SpongeBob.
Yes.
And the Prom. And that's the end of your 8 Broadway shows to date. And I just think that's remarkable.
Thank you.
You know, we the days before shows ran for 100 years.
Yeah.
And they would run for, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years. It was normal to bounce around, to go from Broadway show to Broadway show to Broadway show. But this generation, like we haven't had that in the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And that's what you did.
Yeah, just like jump around, which was great. And like I love that they were all original. I think that gave me extreme patience in any rehearsal process now because, well, like when a show is being built from the bottom up, you watch you watch them create the show. You watch how the creative team works. I learned how a creative team works. I learned what makes a show and what doesn't. I think the main thing that makes a show successful is when the creative team is willing to bend. Like, I think we need to change that. And then if they say yes, if there's a collaboration with them and nobody is stopping anyone's creativity and everyone's kind of like compromising, that's the best way for a show to last.
At what point in your performance career did you start clocking, I want to direct, I want to choreograph, I want to be on this side of the table? Who did you watch that informed that decision?
Alex Timbers, who did Rocky. And I mean, honestly, I worked with some amazing directors on Broadway, Richard Eyre, Matthew Warchus, but it was, and they were all amazing. I love them. But it was Alex and Tina, because Alex, Tina, and then Casey Nicola, the three of them, it was those 3 shows in a row. They care so much about the fact that the ensemble isn't just there, that they should be acting. And so Alex actually, for his shows, the ensemble, you have to do a monologue.
Really?
He wants to make sure that that you can act.
Yeah. And
so, and then Tina Landau, like in SpongeBob, every single person got their own bow.
That's remarkable.
And then Casey comes from the ensemble, so his respect. I mean, sometimes I feel like he would just love to hang out with the ensemble and just like, it's so like, watching people actually direct ensemble is like awesome.
Yeah.
And such a missed opportunity that people don't do. And I think you can tell when you don't include them in that. So, and that's like the show I'm working on now. I can tell that some of them think that the ensemble is just there for decoration. And I'm like, no, you're actors.
Well, particularly in Color Purple, where there isn't a grand ensemble. There isn't a huge singing ensemble or a dancing ensemble. It is very much an ensemble piece in that everyone has a sort of equitable, not necessarily equal amount of stuff to do, but an equitable amount of contribution to the story. I remember Julie Taymor, Lion King director, we typically have like regroup sessions every few years where she'll come in and and I vividly remember her saying, I don't care if you're Scar, I don't care if you're a blade of grass. If you're not invested in the story of Simba and his redemptive relationship with his father, you need to recalibrate. Everyone in this story is here to serve that central narrative. And, you know, I, of course, folded my arms and went, well, no, not, oh, yeah, no, them. Well, what about, oh, yeah, them too. Right? That makes perfect sense. Yeah. And I had the ability to watch the designer run of Color Purple last week, and the same thing comes to mind. If you're not serving this story of this woman and the women who love her and the men who grow to understand and respect her, recalibrate.
Yes, and the community, because the community is so much a part of the story.
It's the entirety of the story.
It's the entirety of the story.
When had you wanted to work on Color Purple prior to this production?
No, I just love the Color Purple. I watch it once a year. It's like there's certain movies I watch once a year. Schindler's List. Not Schindler's List. That's The Shawshank Redemption.
Every time it's on.
If
I'm channel surfing, I am unable to turn the channel.
It's so good.
Do we still turn the channel? That doesn't make any sense because there's no dial.
I don't know what you're talking about. There were dials on TV. Gross. It's so nasty.
I can't even imagine. Oh, Shawshank's so good. And Color Purple, you said?
Yes, and it's just, Color Purple was the first movie I ever saw that where people looked like me.
Really?
Because there is colorism in Hollywood, especially right now is the best position for Black women that's ever been in Hollywood history. There's so many different tones and sizes, and it's pretty incredible to be a part of. But in the 80s, that was not the case. And most people, if you look, the most famous Black women, even now, if you think of who your favorite Black actors are, they're all light-skinned. Almost all of them. There's like very few. And the dark-skinned ones are usually like comedy and like all that stuff. So that was the first movie where because the Nettie, now like we explore colorism with Nettie and Celie, but both Nettie and Celie were dark-skinned and everybody in the movie I was like, this is incredible.
Right.
And also I grew up in the South, so I just understood that movie in that way. And like when he says, you're why do you want to be with Celie? She's black as tar, headed, and legs like baseball bats. And that literally describes me. I'm dark skinned. I have nappy hair. And my legs, which are gorgeous gams,
Indeed,
look like baseball bats because they're shaped like this, because they go like this, which I think is a great shape. But like as a kid, like always trying to figure out why I felt so uncomfortable, because I grew up in we moved to Birmingham, and it was like growing up in New York, which I didn't remember, but we went there every summer, and then being in the Haitian community and then the Caribbean community, to going to an all-white school in Alabama was a very much
culture shock.
There was 3 in the elementary school, and then when we went to the high school, I think it was like maybe 5% or 10% of the graduating. And I graduated with a lot of people were black. And so to just hear those words coming out, just, I don't know, it was great. I love that movie so much.
Every shot is masterful.
Yeah.
It's just, and we've been talking about the recent film, which you've not yet seen intentionally because you're directing the show. I have seen it, and it's impossible to not compare. And I think intentionally. I mean, there are a few shots where it's a direct parallel. There's a bunch of dialogue that is from the original screenplay.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes it's diametrically opposed to what the original was, so that you can have this sort of contrasted lens into the same moment in the narrative. Because the narrative is exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
The story is the story. But the lens shifts a little bit. One thing is the juke joint, the shots, you never escape the fact that it's in the middle of a swamp.
Yeah.
That you are crossing water to
hot.
get to it. Yes.
It's
great.
Prohibition. That's what I was trying to tell them. I was like, it's got to be dirty. I was like, like Prohibition that's why it's in the middle of the woods. And it's just like sweaty and gross. And like the movie was just so that like you just felt like you were in that room.
Yeah, so charged.
And Chris, who is doing the lighting he did it for Christmas Carol, and he's doing for this, is like, the lights that he has for that is so great. I was like, I want it red light especially. I want everyone to feel hot, and like, it's great.
It's so sexually charged.
Yes.
It's so, and like the evolution of Celie's sexuality is so beautifully done. I mean, in every incarnation.
Yeah.
It's really most deeply explored in the book, but the musical allows for that as well. Push the Button is such a great number. Do you have a favorite song or line from the show?
My favorite line, it's so random, and it's in the movie and it's in the book too. And every time I read it or hear it, and when Mr. Sophia walks into the juke joint and Mr. says, "Where are your children?" She says, "Where are yours?" Like, where's yours? And I don't know why that's one of my favorite, especially the way it's done, like the way that it's sung on the way that Danielle Brooks sings that part. It's like so growly, and it's one of my favorite lines. But the Easter, I may be black, I may be poor, I may even be ugly, but I'm here. Best line.
It's extraordinary, with and without music.
Yes.
I mean, I guess that's the testament to a strong moment in the narrative and piece of dialogue or text, is that it is obviously without music in the original movie, and then it has been musicalized for the musical in both the stage play and the film.
Yeah.
And it holds the same weight.
Oh, the Easter dinner. It's just that whole thing. And like, And then my favorite song is Somebody's Gonna Love You. I just think it's so beautiful. I think what I'm happy to dig into more, that's kind of like quickly, because you want to get to the other parts of the story, is that she's also going through postpartum. And she's
early in the play.
Yeah. So like, even when Nettie's leaving and stuff, she's still she's helping her, but like, she's still very depressed, not just because of the way that her father's, but it's like she just had 2 of her kids taken away and killed. And it's like, it's so like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah.
Normalized,
like,
right?
But like, that's deep, intense pain.
Yeah.
So I just think it's important to try to figure out how to implement that.
Just remarkable. So we talk about inspiration a lot on this show. What inspires people to like go into theater, to stay in theater, and I'm interested to hear stories about how folks then in turn inspire others. And you do so much. First of all, so Vasthy and I met doing a production of A Christmas Carol just this past year, and we were sort of peripherally connected, and then you were kind enough to submit an audition tape. I'm asking for an audition tape from somebody with 8 Broadway credits, but whatever. And I had written the adaptation, and you used a Haitian accent for your audition, which completely blew open the lens that we were looking at that section of the story, and then allowed us to re-examine everything in that whole middle section of the play. And you were such an integral part of that lens and that dialogue, and you were so open and graceful. I guess my point is that you lead everything you do with grace and poise and intelligence and humor and skill, obviously, but it's the sort of grace, heart-forward nature that you have in any room. How is that informing your work as you move forward? And I know you write kids songs as well, and you've got a single out, yes?
Yeah, we have an album that came out last year, I believe. Was it last year? I don't know what year it is.
Same.
2021? Yeah, 2021.
Pandemic. Time is a constant.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know what year it is.
Heard. Yep.
But I started doing kids music during the pandemic.
What drew you to that?
I think there was just too much, as we all know, there was too much going on. And I was online and I was talking to people and trying to teach them about what it was to be Black. And I was like, okay, I don't want to teach adults anymore. I don't want to teach adults anymore. It's so much harder. It is so much easier to teach a kid to not hate than to teach an adult who already has been programmed to not hate. And it's more fun. So I would be like at home and there'd be like, science, is it real? And I'd be like, science is real, kids, and write a song about, and then we would do a whole episode about science being real. And like, it was kind of before Zoom really was a thing. And my ex-husband at the time was working and he was through Zoom. And so I owned a babysitting agency and I was like, I want to be able to keep our staff. I want to be able to try to pay them because this is when we thought it was going to be 2 weeks.
Sure.
And so I was like, I'll play the guitar, I'll play a few songs and read a book, and we'll just tell some of the families that subscribe to the company to come. So I sang a song, I set my cell phone up on some books, and I sang like 2 songs and read a book, and we were done. And one of the co-owners of the company now, it was called Vasthy and Friends, was like, that was weirdly like cleansing. And I was like, it was. So we kept doing it. And so we started with 9 families. And by the end of the pandemic, we had like 700 something families registered. We raised like $15,000-$20,000 for all these like charities, and we got to pay actors. And
during a global pandemic when actors were not working.
Yeah, and it just felt, we did shows for the Children's Hospital. It was so satisfying, and it felt like, I was like, I think this is my way of finding social justice, is through kids shows. If you think of any kids show, anyone from when you're a kid, they're all social justice shows secretly.
They're morality stories.
Yeah.
They're how to navigate life like a decent human being.
Yes. And like, I look back now and I'm like, Mr. Rogers, LeVar Burton.
LeVar Burton.
Burton. All of them were just like, they also quit on adults and were like, let's just try with kids.
Absolutely. I get why.
Lamb Chop.
Yeah.
All of them. They're all like incredible.
You better reference Lamb Chop. Sherry Lewis.
My sister loved it.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, that's what we're doing now. And so we will have this whole album, and it's like the cast of SpongeBob has a song on it. Like, we just got all these, Lilius White wrote a song for it.
No.
Mm-hmm.
How cool. What's the title of the album?
It's called Sing, Dance, Play.
And can folks download it?
Yes, you can download it anywhere you'd like. Spotify, iTunes.
Go do that. Go download that.
Napster. You can download it on Napster. Put it on your MySpace page or your Friendster page.
Not Friendster. I can't. You are gradually telling my tens of listeners that you're not actually 24 years old.
I mean, I've never heard of those things. My dad and my parents really loved Friendster.
What's next for you? What's after this?
After this, so I've joined, I'm on a house team at UCB now, Upright Citizens Brigade, which I got on and that's like besides being on Broadway, like being on a UCB team was like one of my major dreams. So I'm so excited. And I get to do it in such a cool way. It's called Quick and Funny Musicals. So we write, produce, design a show in like 2 weeks, basically.
That gives me so much anxiety.
And it did. I was like the first, right before and they've been together for years, so they know how to, and they very rarely let new people in. So I had audition or whatever, and I was just like, when you're like excited, and then you're like, why did I do this? Why did I make this decision? I was terrified. But the first show I did with them was called A Picket Line, and it was based on the strike.
Yeah.
But we did chorus line with it, and it was so much fun, and it just brought me so much joy. And so I have a show coming up in January. We do one a month
in LA.
Yeah, and then I'm on another team called Sunday's Best, and it's an all-Black improv team, which I am so excited to start working with because I've never gotten to do improv or comedy with Black people, I realized.
Why is that?
I think before, like, that sort of comedy was just like, I don't even think it was on purpose. It's not like they were like, no.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of quite the opposite at UCB. They're like, please, like, you know what I mean? Right. And I think more and more people of color and stuff are coming in. I think When a Living Color, do you remember the show?
Yeah.
That was like the last Black kind of sketch show. And then there was Key and Peele, and there's Black Women's Comedy Show. So like, I think that it's something that's kind of getting Black people into these places, and I think it's great.
Black Women Comedy Show, was that the one? Do you know?
Black Women Sketch.
Yeah.
With Robin Thede,
Yes, because we had someone from Lion King go on that.
They love me. They love theater people.
I remember she had, and it's going to bug me now because I'm spacing on her name because I'm old, but she had, one of her characters was an angry yoga teacher. I mean, just funny from the get-go. Like on the page, it was funny, and then the sketches were hilarious.
They're really funny. And so that's how I moved to LA, actually, for doing sketch. And I keep forgetting that's why I moved. And so sometimes I get distracted because I do a lot of stuff. And then I was, oh, wait a minute. I moved to LA because I got a sketch scholarship. So that's why I should probably focus on that's amazing. And ever since I was like, oh, this feels right. Because it's so musical theater-y, and it's so like just play. It's just like adults playing. And I think sketch, comedy, and improv is so close to musical theater in that way. Just a bunch of like adult toddlers. Just like, you know what I mean? Just like
acting like fools.
Acting like absolute fools.
How does that inform how you direct? Because here, many theaters now, but here at Short North, we have a very short rehearsal process, and that is becoming more popular is the wrong word. It's becoming more the trend just for finances.
Yeah.
But because you have a background in improv and working fast, how has that been with a book show, with a structured show?
It's actually fun. I learned, as you know, because you've been doing this, like I learn I'm still so new at this part of it. So like the first show I had, I was like, let's do like organic, like blah, blah, blah. And because that's how I was taught to direct.
Sure.
Because my rehearsal processes were 6 weeks long. And then I was like, oh, I can't do that. So I came in differently prepared this time, and watching Edward work on A Christmas Carol helped that so well, like watching the two of you and like how prepared, and you're like, so that there was room to play, but creating a sketch for them to play in, like a playpen.
That's it, right?
And I was like, I watched and I was like, oh, okay, that's how I need to do this sort of process. And so I don't know if that even answers the question, but one of my favorite things from that is getting to add in the jokes. And like when I was doing Dreamgirls, when everyone would laugh at one of the bits I created, I was like, this is the ultimate bit. Making people that you hired do bits, and then people have to watch your bits. I was like, it's the ultimate bit.
Yeah, you and I have bits all the time that crack probably no one up other than us.
Yeah,
I'm so thoroughly amused by them. I don't care who else.
I love it. So that part is fun, and like I think sometimes in musical theater, we're so serious, and like the jokes are sometimes just like, let's tell the joke that's on the page. And so I like trying to teach actors to just like, it's like we're funny when we're not doing it, and then everyone just goes into. And I was like, we got to find the joy, and like especially in Color Purple, like you have to have the laughs because otherwise it's just so dark.
It's so traumatic,
so
right?
You need that.
Also, the humor. I mean, so much humor is born out of trauma anyway. It is a tool that's used. You know, there's a whole unpacking to be done about Jewish humor that came out of oppression, right?
Ooh, I never thought about that.
There's a documentary I think called Jews in Comedy, something like that. You know, it's pretty straightforward, but how it is sort of born out of a need for lightening trauma or navigating trauma, healing. You know, and the humor in Color Purple is very funny. Sophia is there, and Sophia gives us both some of the darkest stuff and some of the best laughs. It's such a great.
Those are the best people to have. People that like go through trauma and stuff, and they still don't make their trauma your trauma, and still are there while they're. I don't know. She's one of my favorite characters. In the show, and Oprah Winfrey, like, that role was just so perfectly cast, that first film.
I read something recently. Danielle Brooks did an interview, and she talks about some of the Oprah-isms that you just can't get away from. She said there are moments with Sophia that have to be done. The fist curling. The walk. Right? That walk. That walk.
That's my favorite. That's why I was like, I have that one part has
such
to be
a great
down the
entrance.
aisle. I was like, I'm taking a lot of them out, but I was like, I need that. Because when it's the way that she walks, because her arms, like, her arms go
so fully extended.
And it's like there's dust coming up, and Harpo was just like...
she propels herself through space with so much purpose and intent and joy. I mean, the Sophia we meet in the beginning is so filled with joy in her love of Harpo. And then we see her go through all of the stuff that she has to go through, and she ends in that joy again.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just, the last shots of the new film are going to take you down. It's really stunning. It's so beautiful. Oh,
and Miss Lily's Pants also is one of my favorite songs. It's such a random song in the show, but it's so great because it's a song that sounds like the music that would have been at that time period.
Yes.
And I think that part is nothing else on the show is like that. It's like that is like the time period.
Yes. It also allows Celie a moment to live in joy, but not quite where she's going to be in I'm Here. Like, we need her to get somewhere later in the play, but we still need a moment of her living in some happiness.
Yeah.
And that song just nails it.
And just that it's pants. Like, it's specifically pants because, like, you know.
It also feels a little like we're allowing her a sexuality as well. I mean, the double entendre of it just allows her agency in her sexuality.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
I love this story.
Me too.
Like, I mean, it's just.
Me too.
I love it. Oh my gosh, we're beyond half hour. I can't believe we're wrapping up already. I love talking to you so much.
Me too.
We got to get you back to town.
Do you know that, like, remember when so Tom picked me up and he was like, I'm here. And I said, coming. The reason I hesitated was because I couldn't figure out what bit I wanted to do when I came out. So I was standing at the door and Allison said, what's wrong? And I was like, I'm going through a few things. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this.
And the bit she did, I'm parked right in front of the house. Literally, like, you open the door and I'm right there. The bit.
Yeah, and so I came out and I acted like I was like a rich Upper East Side person waiting for my personal driver. I was like looking around. But I was like, okay, I could do this bit. I'm like, oh, well, I don't know. Maybe it's too early for that one. I just had so many just standing at the door.
Is there anything better than starting your day with a laugh, though? Like,
no, there really isn't.
Right?
And you're fun to play. Like,
I got you.
We started doing bits like right away. Like, there was like immediately.
Yeah, my goal is to get you involved in everything I ever do. Just my own personal needs.
Great. So great.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
This was so fun. I love you. Come back again.
I will.
Absolutely. And thank you for listening and watching and liking and subscribing. And if you have questions or suggestions, people you want to hear from, we have an email. thankyouhalfhourpodcast@gmail.com. Write to me. Love to hear from you. Bye.
All right, that's a half hour.
Thank you, half hour.
Thank you.
Boxland Media. Think big.